Hi, welcome back to another Compo 10 video. Today we're going to talk about classes. Not the kind of classes that you're taking here at Carolina, but in TypeScript, classes are a way of bundling together some values and giving a name to it. So in this video we're going to create a book class. So when we're creating classes, you might also hear classes talked about as objects. And that makes sense. So we're starting to talk about this thing called object-oriented programming, which is really just a way of writing programs that tries to make things in the computer act more like they do in the real world. So in the real world we have objects all around us, right? We have, you could say, we have a car, or there's a person, or a pencil, and all of these things have properties. So you might think about what properties a car has. A car might have a model, a year it was made, a color, number of miles driven, and you can think about how in our program we could break down those properties into those simple types that we have to work with. So like a model of a car might be a string, and a number of miles driven would be a number. Alright, so let's think through what kinds of properties our book class might have. Let's give our books a title, which would be a string, an isNew property, which would be a boolean, a material, which is what the book's made out of, and a number of pages, and that could be a number. Alright, so we've got some properties, we've decided we want to make a book class and that has these properties, or a book object. So the syntax for creating a class is just you write the keyword class, and then the name of the class you want to create. And class names always begin with a capital letter. So we're going to say capital B book. And then you just put curly braces. And inside those curly braces, we can list out the kinds of properties we want our book to have. So we're going to say material is going to be a string. And then we're going to say isNew is going to be a boolean. And we're going to say title is going to be a string. And number of pages is going to be a number. Awesome. So now we've got our class, we've said we're going to define a new class that has these four properties. So you can also think about classes as defining a new type. So far in Compo 10 we've been working with those three simple types, right? Number, string, and boolean. And you can do a lot with those, but if we want to build more complicated things, we can define new types and work with them just like we've been working with numbers, strings, and booleans. So by creating a book class, we're essentially creating a new type of variable in TypeScript called a book. And we've said that we've given it some properties, and every complicated type can be broken down into these simple types, or these atomic types as well. So this is exciting. We're getting all of this new functionality. With the ability to make classes, we have the ability to create like way more complicated things and work with more abstract ideas than just numbers, strings, and booleans. So we have our book class, and if we want to actually work with our book class, we have to create an instance of it. So just the class by itself is like a blueprint for the book object. So we can't actually do anything with it yet. Just like if you have a blueprint for a house, you can't live in a blueprint of the house, you have to actually build it first. So we've made the blueprint, and now we have to build an instance of it. So the syntax for that is just like declaring a variable. We're going to say let book be of type book, and we're going to initialize it to a new instance of the book class. So we're going to say new, capital B book, and parentheses. And we'll talk about why those parentheses are there later on. Cool, so now we've constructed a new instance of our book class and stored it in this lowercase b book variable. But we haven't put anything inside the properties of the book yet. When we create a new instance of it, we made like boxes in memory to hold the material, whether it's new, the title, but we haven't filled those with anything yet. So to do that, you can just use the dot operator to access and read and write from those properties. So underneath where we created a new book, we can say book.title equals, and let's say Harry Potter. And then if we wanted to, say, set the number of pages, we could say book.number of pages equals 336. Alright, so now let's convince ourselves that what's happening here is actually happening and print out some of these things. So we can print out book.title. So if we run that, now we can see Harry Potter printed out on the screen. Awesome. So we didn't set all the properties of our book, and is new and material are things that are kind of the same for all books, right? So all books are made of paper, and all books, when they start out, are new. So instead of manually setting those properties each time we create a new book, we can actually set them inside the class, and then they'll start out with those values whenever a new instance of the book is constructed. So inside our class declaration of the book class, beside material, we can say equals paper in double quotes. And that just means that every time we make a new instance of our book class, the material property will be immediately set to paper. And we can do the same thing for is new. We can say equals true, because all books are new when they're first created. Great, so we can print these out too. So if instead of printing out the title, we print out book.isNew, we should see true printed out on our screen. So say we wanted to rip out a couple pages of the book, we could just change that property. So we can say book.number of pages equals 330. So we ripped out the first 6 pages of Harry Potter. And then if we print book.number of pages after we've set the property, we see the new property printed out on the screen. So I hope you're getting an idea now of how classes are these powerful things in programming that we can use to group together a bunch of properties and give a name to them and read and write from them and work with them as an object, as a group of things called a book. So let's use our class now and make a function that does something with it. So just like we can pass in variables of type number or string to a function, we can pass in variables of new types, like a book. So we're going to make a readBook function that changes the isNew property of the book we give it. So let's say function readBook, and we're going to take in one parameter that's of type book. So let's say a book that's of type book with a capital B. And this is going to be a void function because it's not going to return anything, it's just going to do something to the book. Then inside the function body we can say a book.isNew is assigned the value false. Cool, so now we've declared our function, let's call it now. So we can, outside the function declaration, say readBook and pass in our book variable that we declared before. And now after that function call, we can print out the isNew value of the book. So we'll say print book.isNew, and if we run that, we should be able to see that our function successfully changed the isNew value of the book.
So just like classes have those elemental properties like numbers and strings and booleans in them, they can also have properties in them that are other classes. So let's make a library class that has a book as a part of its properties. So we're going to go ahead and say class library. And inside our library, let's have a property called number of books, and that'll be a number. So that's another one of those normal types. And then let's go ahead and have in our library also a property called favorite book, and that type will actually be a book. So now that we have this library class, we can go ahead and assign the favorite book of the week for our said library. So let's go ahead and make the instance of our library. So let's pick the undergraduate library, just because it's a convenient location on campus. So we'll say let undergraduate library be of type library, and then we'll say that equals new library. And now we can also go ahead, well, we already have a book object, so we can go ahead and set the favorite book of this library. So let's go ahead and say undergraduate library dot favorite book equals book. And we can also go ahead and say number of books, we can go ahead and set that, so say library dot number of books equals, let's say 10,000. And let's go ahead and print the title of the favorite book in the library. So we'll say undergraduate library dot favorite book dot title, and let's print that expression. And we can see that we got Harry Potter because our book's title was Harry Potter. So that was just to show that you can have a class within those properties of another class, and that's why they're so useful. You've made this tool that you can go ahead and use and manipulate in various ways. So as you saw there, we used a lot of dots. And the way to think about it is you can keep stringing together dots, and whatever's to the left of the previous dot is like an object or a call of its own. So you could almost insert parentheses. So when we said undergraduate library dot favorite book, that right there went and grabbed book, our book object. So you could almost insert that there, and then the next dot, which said title, is reflecting on book. And so then that pulled the title out of that. And so we can keep going with that if we had the opportunity to. So if we had a school that had a library that had a book, you can keep adding dots, but you could almost think of them like parentheses. So we hope you had fun learning about how you can make a book in the digital world. They're really helpful. Books teach us a lot of things. If you want to learn Java after learning TypeScript, you could make a Java book instance. And check out our next video on arrays to learn how you can make objects and store them in arrays.